unboxing and showing how to use the Zizico GTX compressor. Inside the box there is a foam shelf that needs to come out. It will have an instruction pamphlet with a parts breakdown. If parts are needed, you can contact Zizico directly and parts can be sent to you if needed. It will come with a container with compressor oil that will have to be added before use. Do not run the compressor without adding this oil. This is the inverter that comes with the compressor. It's 110 or 220 volt. We'll show you how to switch that here in a minute. In this side of the compressor box is a variety of tools, that we will go over, including tools needed for rebuilding the compressor in the future after extended wear, and burst discs if you accidentally blow your burst disc on the compressor. Okay, we'll get to that also. We have removed the compressor from the box. It is a very compact unit and very quiet. It has two leads for hooking up to a 12 volt power source or to the inverter that is supplied with the compressor. This is the fill whip. On the end of the fill whip is a deadhead. This will have to be removed before use, but we will use this in the break-in period that we'll be showing here shortly. The fill whip is tied on simply by string, and we have a pivot over here that allows us to move the fill whip with ease. Here are the two clips for the 12 volt connection. Is wound around, as you can see, and this will give us plenty of leg to reach out to a car battery in the field or the inverter that is supplied. On the front of the compressor, this is the bleed valve. We will show you its function shortly. This is to bleed the air off after pumping up your vessel so the fill whip can be removed from your pressure vessel. Start button, stop button. Fairly simple. They're illuminated. This is the breaker switch or the on-off switch. This will have to be turned on before use. It will power up 3 electrical fans in the unit to keep it cool. This is an air-cooled unit with an oil bath for added wear usage and longevity. On top of the unit is a pressure dial that can be adjusted. It's an auto shut-off feature. Never leave the compressor running though without your supervision for long periods of time. This should only be used with your self present. This is a safety valve. It has a stack of Belleville washers, and after a certain pressure is reached, it'll lift and vent the air out these 2 holes on the top. This can be adjusted just about anywhere you want. So for added safety, if you have a vessel, let's say that's 3000 psi and you don't ever want the unit to get higher than that, you can adjust this out until you get to the point where this will vent no matter where this is set at your set pressure. Very good feature. On the back of the unit This is the location of the burst disc. It is inside of here. If you overpressurize your unit, the burst disc will let go. It's supplied with several in the bag of parts. In case you overpressurize, take out the screw, add the burst disc. We'll go over that shortly also. On the bottom of the unit, this is a bleed back valve. It has a spring and ball plunger. This is a maintenance item that needs to be looked at regularly, and especially if you pump the unit up and when you stop you see the pressure leaking down. That means that ball unit is dirty and needs to be cleaned. When you stop pumping, the unit should stop and not leak down quickly. I mean, it can go slowly obviously, but quickly. If it does, then that ball unit is probably dirty and needs to be cleaned. We'll go over that also. Okay, we are now ready to install the supplied compressor oil into the compressor so we can use it and start the break-in process. On the side that the fill whip is on, there is a rubber plug. I've removed it already. Under the rubber plug, and we'll go ahead and lay this on its side now, there's a plug down there. All you need to do is loosen it up. Get some needle nose pliers. Pick that up out of there. Put the funnel in there. And then pour in the supplied oil. Replace the cap. Tighten it down. And put the plug back in. We have added all of the oil from the container when the compressor was on its side. We have now tilted it upright. The oil should be below the window about 1/4 of an inch. It is roughly 1.5 ounces of oil. The oil is now in the unit, the plug is on, and the rubber cap is reinstalled. Now we need to set up the inverter. The inverter will normally come, but it should be checked with the switch and the 115 volt selection. If you need to use this 220 volt, you can slide the unit over to the 220, 230 volt selection. So in the US, we will be in the 115 volt selection. You'll see it in the side of the unit. This is where the clamps will fit onto the unit. There is a positive red for the red unit. There is a black negative for the black unit. They simply go on like that. This allows you to hook the compressor up to a 110 volt, 115 volt household current with the supplied grounded outlet. Okay, let's do that and start the break-in process. We have hooked the inverter to our household current. Our pump is attached to the inverter. Positive red, negative black. We'll turn the pump on. We will make sure the bleed valve is open all the way and that the deadhead that is supplied in the unit on the end of the whip is attached. Make sure it is fully seated. Bleeder valve will remain open during this process. We will start the unit up and let it run for 30 seconds and then shut it off. Unit is on. The red off light is illuminated. We will press the start button and simply let it run for 30 seconds and then shut it off. Okay, we have shut the unit off after our 30 seconds. This allows the oil to be pumped up and splash the pistons and get it working through the system under no load. The bleeder valve will remain open now. We will move the pressure dial gauge to the 1000 psi mark. We will start it with the bleeder valve open, and then once it's rotating, we will close the bleeder valve and let it pump up and stop. Valve is open. Closing the valve. Letting it pump up and auto stopping. Put the unit off. Bleed the air. Move the unit to 2000 psi. Make sure the bleeder valve is always open when you start this unit. Never start it with the valve closed under any circumstance. Turn the unit on. Start the unit. Close the bleeder. Let it run up to 2000 psi and auto stop. Turn the unit off. Bleed the air. As you can see, there's no residue, but if there is, do not be alerted. This is normal. Oil will work its way up through the system, especially during the first break-in and the first few runs. So do not be alarmed if some oil comes out the vent. I suggest opening the vent slowly also and not cracking it open rapidly and creating a high vacuum situation inside the pump, which will draw oil up out of the crankcase. Okay, so the last step before we use it, turn it up to 3000 psi. The pressure gauge, bleeder is open again, like before. Never start the pump with the bleed valve closed. On, start, let it cycle, close, run it up to 3000 and auto stop, and then we will be off to the next section of this video. It's a very quiet unit, very portable, and with the 110 and 12 volt option, it makes it very useful in a lot of situations. Leave it off. Turn it off. Now we're ready to use it to fill a vessel, which we will do now. Okay, now we are going to fill the pressure vessel of this PCP air rifle using its Foster fitting. The deadhead is still in the unit, so we will remove that by pulling back on the tangs and then removing the deadhead. We will then pull back on the tangs and push it onto the Foster fitting, releasing the tang and locking it into the unit. We now have the Foster fitting attached, unattached. Push it on, push it all the way down, release it, pull up on it, make sure it's locked in firmly. Open the bleeder valve, set the pressure to your gun's specific fill pressure. This unit fills to 3000, so we have set our auto shut off to 3000. Bleed valve is open. Start the unit. Push the start button. Once it starts cycling, you can close the bleed valve. It will begin to fill the unit immediately. We can watch it climb up. Once it gets to the desired PSI that you have set it to, it will auto shut off. Okay, now the unit has auto shut off. The next step will be to open the bleed valve, slowly venting off the pressure and leave the bleed valve open. Grab the tank, lift it up, pull the whip off the gun. Let the unit run for 30 seconds to allow it to cool the unit with the cooling fans before shutting it off. Longer if you've had an extended run time. 1 or 2 minutes is probably the most you'll need to do this for. The unit is gear reduction and does not require a lot of cooling. It runs fairly cool. When you have finished using the unit and filling your pressure vessel, we recommend putting the deadhead back in the unit, wind up the cables into their previous position, wind up the pressure whip into its previous position, and closing the bleed valve. This will prevent moisture from leaching into the unit from the atmosphere. This is the maintenance section of the video. Here we'll talk about the first oil change. This should be done after the first 100 fills from the unit, or after the first 10 hours of use. After that, we recommend changing the oil once a year or every 100 hours of use. To change the oil, you'll need a syringe with a long hose attached to reach through the fill hole. Earlier, we removed the rubber plug from the side and we removed the fill hole plug. This is on the side that has the fill whip. As you can see, the oil is about a 1/4 inch below the hole. We'll take our hose and we'll put it in and run it to the bottom and then pull it out using our syringe. There is only 1.5 ounces of oil in the unit. It has a very small crankcase, so it won't take very long to pull out all of the oil. Then we'll go ahead and replace the oil as we did before, using a funnel by laying it on its side, putting the funnel in the hole, and using appropriate oil for the crankcase, 1 1/2 ounces. This is a very good oil that can be purchased off of Amazon, eBay, or on various online places. Another maintenance item is the check valve on the bottom of the compressor. It needs to be cleaned occasionally, and especially if you notice after filling that the pressure needle is dropping backwards before you vent the line. That means the check valve is leaking and it's probably just dirty. I recommend cleaning it every time you change your oil, regardless if it has a problem or not. It is on the bottom of the compressor. You'll need a 3/4 inch socket and wrench. First you'll loosen it up with the socket wrench, then you can remove the plug by hand. It's a long threaded plug. This is on the bottom of the compressor. Clean out any debris that may be on the inside of this plug at the bottom with a Q-tip. Inside the bottom is a spring and plunger. This is what seals up the unit from back pressure escaping. This needs to be cleaned thoroughly. And inside you'll need to take a Q-tip also up there and clean that. And this should be done every oil change, and if the problem arises from back pressure bleeding off. If you hear a loud pop during filling and then the unit refuses to put any more pressure into your vessel, more than likely the burst disc has popped. They do wear out and they can let go, and it's a simple procedure to replace it. In the bag of parts that comes with the compressor is some very small discs. As you can see them in there, they're silver and round. If your burst disc needs to be replaced, inside of that tool kit is a set of Allen wrenches. Go ahead and take out the plug. And inside the unit at the bottom is the burst disc. You can see it down there. Just take a pick and pop it out or shake it out upside down with the compressor. Make sure you remove it and put the new burst disc in, and then go ahead and tighten up the plug very firmly. Make sure this is very tight. It needs to squish that burst disc into place and prevent any leaking. The safety valve can sometimes leak also. It has a plunger that sometimes can get debris on it, and it will need to be cleaned. I'm going to remove the plunger and show you how the Belleville stack is set up inside the unit in case when you're taking it apart and cleaning it, you get it out of spec. So the first thing we'll need to do is take a crescent wrench and loosen the lock nut. Take the lock nut off, then using some needle nose pliers, go ahead and unscrew the cap. Now the plunger has a series of Belleville washers stacked in it in a specific configuration. So you have to be careful removing it, but if you do get it all messed up, I'll show you how it goes back together. Plunger, and at the bottom is a very small vent hole. We just need to take a Q-tip or small rag and clean this area up. This is the plunger with the Belleville stack on it. This is what is adjusted to allow this to rise and vent over pressure, or to set it to your specification. On the bottom is a Delrin seat. This is what seals up against the cone on the bottom with a small hole. You just need to clean this. And as you can see, there's a Belleville washer stack. They're stacked in a series of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 all together. Now they are stacked back to back like so. So they're concave, so the two concave surfaces face each other. So it is thicker in this setup. The incorrect way would be the two concaves go in the same direction and thinner. See that? That's incorrect. Thicker, and the two concaves facing each other. And they're stacked in series of 2 on the plunger, like that. 12 in all. And this simply sets down like so. I find the unit works pretty much the best when the top of the adjuster and the lock nut are level with each other. This can be adjusted to your liking though. If the unit is not working for any particular reason and you think it might have some type of electrical problem, please unplug the unit first. Make sure there's no power going to it. Shut off the switch. Remove this and this Phillips head screw. And on the top, this and this Phillips head screw. Then on the back side of the unit, these three and these three. That allow you to pick the whole top off and you can view the inside of the compressor and see if there are any loose fittings. We'll go over more of that in the rebuild section of the next video.